Hello, and welcome to the AfterParty. I should really think of an introduction. We have Moons on the show today. Hello, Moons.
How's it going, Harper?
Great, great. So, in case you're new to the show, the AfterParty is an interview podcast where we talk with people who play SpyParty. And I think you fit that description.
I definitely fit that description. Of late, I've been playing a lot of Spy Party for about the last month or so.
Cool. So the thing I start the show off with, for people who don't know what it is, and just to force you in an uncomfortable position, I'm going to get you to describe to the people listening what is SpyParty.
Oh, great. I did not have this planned.
I
It's
made
so
sure
funny
not to
because
tell you.
when I stream, Magician watches often, and he always comes in, and whenever a new viewer asks what I'm playing, which is pretty often, he copy and pastes the little bit from I think the website, something about it being a one versus one asymmetrical game, this, that, and the third. But if I had to describe Spy Party coming from my background, which is fighting games, I'd call it a very a very slow burning fighting game. It's basically there's a spy, there's a sniper, and each of them has their own set of objectives. The sniper's goal is simply to find the spy and kill the spy. The spy's goal is to complete a certain amount of missions within a certain amount of time without being caught by the sniper, in layman's terms.
Yep. And as soon as the sniper decides to shoot somebody, the game is over.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
they,
Game
they,
is
they
over.
yeah, they can't go, well, I think it's these five people and kill all five of them. They can't do that.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely can't kill all five. You have to bet it on one, and
mm,
you know, kind of have to levy which one you think is most likely the culprit. Whether or not you know that for sure. There are ways in which you can know that for sure, depending on what you see. But yeah, I would say that sums up the game pretty well.
yeah, I'm sure KCM, who's one of the very experienced players in the game, would appreciate the description of it's a slow burn fighting game because apparently he plays a lot of those.
Yeah, like that's kind of what got me into the game. I play fighting games. I remember seeing it at Evo, and
Oh,
I
cool.
just the concept immediately intrigued me. As to how I knew the game would play, it didn't really matter. Just the concept was enough for me. Just knowing that your objective is to do things in front of somebody who's looking for you, almost in plain sight. Because when you see the game, 2 or 3 years ago, the map that you see is ballroom,
Mm,
which is very visible for the sniper for the most part. So just
yes.
the idea that you have to complete objectives like right in front of somebody else's face without them seeing you, that's really what got me into it. And I remember signing up and waiting to get emailed for that beta for a while.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So the the way the show's sort of structured at the moment is that we pick a topic and then we talk about the topic. So I think we sort of agreed upon talking about the new art, since that's the thing that a lot of people have been spending time with.
Yeah, definitely a fan of the new art. And like he added what did he add? He added new art high rise with an update recently that the thing was it wasn't optimized. So while I enjoyed the new art and whatnot, I I had trouble getting over the 30 FPS frames per second. So like today when he released the new build, like the optimized build, and it was running beautifully, I definitely I definitely joyed to see that.
Mm. Yeah, so for people who aren't familiar with this big change that's happened recently, for a long time, the game has largely consisted of placeholder models that, while quaint and certainly of a certain style, are also ugly. And now we're starting to get new character art, which is very pretty.
Yeah, I definitely I like the new art. I think it fits the idea of the game. There's not really you kind of have to go for like this caricature cartoon look, without dumbing it down or making the game look silly. It almost
Hmm.
feels like that's the only way you can go. You really don't want like realistic looking avatar models. That would kind of bore the game. The game's characters are fun.
Yeah,
They're very interesting. So
they have a levity to them. There's like a warmth to the colors, which is I know for me at least, it makes the situation feel at least a bit more comfortable or lighthearted.
Yeah, despite somebody getting shot
Mm,
at a party, like sometimes innocent bystanders get shot.
mm.
It's a nice contrast to what you're actually looking at.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice. Like I hadn't I hadn't thought this until after having spent a lot of time now looking at these new characters. We should also point out though, the new art is not finished. There's still half the characters that need to be modeled. Many of the maps are still in the old art, and a lot of bugs and glitches. But it's sort of at this point now we can actually play some of the maps with this new art. But I was going to say, I hadn't realized how creepy looking the old characters are when you stare them in the eye.
Oh, I might have to. The old art characters you're
Yeah,
referring
yeah.
to. I might have to look at them. You know what it is? You just grow used to them. I
Hmm.
mean, you even start to like them. Despite it just being like rehash models with different colored clothes. You can still see character in them for some reason.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm gonna have to stare one of the old art characters in the eyes and see how creepy it is.
Well, it's the new user interface. There's a page where you select characters, and they're all sort of just standing there in front of you.
Oh,
And
yeah,
now
yeah.
because they're sort of looking towards me, their eyes look very creepy. They're these huge, unblinking eyes that are just flat textures on a polygon, and it's creepy. I hadn't noticed it before.
Yeah, creepy, but the point gets across.
Yeah, yeah. That they're not distracting. It's just when you look at them directly that it's like, oh,
When they're looking right back at you.
yeah. Because well, we need to get into that. What we should get into though is um, reasons why this new art is interesting for the game. Because I don't know about you, but I've spent a fair bit of time now, sort of playing with these new characters, and it feels like even though there's nothing really that's a mission attached to the new art, that they do change the game a lot. Just having higher model character, like more definition to the characters and them having a larger shape. It feels like it's that there are lots of interesting changes that have come from that. Have you noticed anything so far?
Yes, I definitely have. New art. I feel like new art changes the game, not completely. I think fundamentally the ideas are still the same, but
Hmm. Well, we were
how
worried
you
it
go
was going to
about
break the game.
in terms of benefiting the spy.
Well, like we didn't know that was a fear that Chris had for a long time, is that it would alter the game in some way that would just be like very hard to creep back towards balance from. But sorry, you were saying?
No, yeah, yeah, I understand where you're going. Like any sort of change, it's really hard to see what it's going to do, down the road, for the long haul. That's why, balance changes is very, you kind of want to hold your cards close to your chest before you do too much because it might hurt the game too much.
Hmm.
But as far as new art goes, it definitely changes the game from a perspective about, how you go about completing missions. Certain missions are easier. We were just playing actually. We were discussing how the bug is seems a bit easier, at least
Yeah,
like the walking
walking
bug.
bug in particular. Well, I feel like a lot of the bugs that happened were with female characters, and the sort of thin female characters, their arms tend to be less noticeable when they bug. So I feel like it was more that. Like when you bugged with the larger character, the portly rich guy, I feel like it was more noticeable because he has like a thicker arm.
Yeah, it looked very visible actually. But I feel like in a way a standing bug might be less visible with him, simply because he's just taking up more space. If that makes any sense, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Uh,
there's well, I think part of it as well is that like the know what's interesting because like perceiving stuff, like the changes are not linear. There's all these like cascading effects of things. So like there's uh people standing in conversation, they're bigger, so they sort of uh more naturally are like close to each other, and so it's like harder to notice a bug. But also there's a bunch of idle animations, and they're all really detailed idle animations, so that can also distract a lot of your attention as well.
Yeah, the idle animations, they're a lot more subtle too. That might just be not being used to the new art, but like avatars discussing things in a conversation or idling,
Hmm.
it's a lot harder to notice. Sometimes, a character might be idling, but I think they're talking, or sometimes talking is very subtle.
Hmm.
So picking up on these cues when you're trying to gather, when you're trying to data mine for information regarding, conversation circles and what the spy may or may not be doing, it seems a bit harder. It seems overall like the new art helps the spy more so than it helps the sniper.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it'll take time just for us to feel that out because I feel like players are sort of starting to relearn watching talking, and I personally actually feel more comfortable now watching who's talking with the new art than in the old art because there's like more details for my brain to grab onto.
Yeah, I could see where you're going
Oh,
with that. I just in the old art when a character spoke, it was very, they're very out there with their gestures and whatnot.
yeah,
I
I caught a
certain
fish this
characters
big.
like certain characters like trying to I don't know if he has a name. I don't really know the names. I'm not keen on the names
Man with
much
a
at all. But
cane.
the new yeah the what do they call Papa Danger.
Yes.
He's very subtle in general. I think there's an interesting meta attached to certain characters now. Character I don't know the wheelchair character's name. My stream
He,
they call they
he,
call him Stephen Hawking on my stream.
I think that's an okay name. Oh wait,
Is
no,
there any current?
yeah, like they're all just like placeholder names like Mr. A, Miss B. I think his is Mr. I
All
think.
right, Mr. I.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I could not anything that I know of, but I could see certain approaches to certain missions
Hmm.
with him being either more difficult or less difficult. I could see Bug being easier with him since the line of view to see one would have to be lower.
Yeah. Well, he'd sort of been joked about for a long time as having this very hard to see bug, and so p people would suspect him of it by default for staying next to the ambassador.
Makes sense. And I mean, Checker detailed like some of his plans down the road for like having certain characters behavior act in different ways than others.
Yeah, yeah. I think dossiers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think that's interesting actually. I think we've always had the ability to choose what spy we'd want to be, what who we want the ambassador to be, but nobody it doesn't seem like people have really made much of an attempt to designate these positions to certain avatars. For
Hmm.
the most part, everybody just picks random and you know, picks their mission set.
Yeah.
So I
Well.
think the new art,
Hmm.
yeah, go on.
Oh. I was just going to say that at high level play, people have sort of realized that there's no real difference to the all that characters. They're all pretty homogenous. There's like some small things, like if you're a guy with a bald head, it's like harder to see you transfer the microfilm and things like that. But because they're all, as you said, basically cut from the same cloth, it's like there's not much point at the moment with them in choosing who the spy is.
Yeah, it's very minute differences. There you aren't gonna gain much of an advantage from picking one character over another in the old art. Versus the new art, there might
Mm,
be tons of different reasons to pick, character A over character B when choosing a certain set of missions.
mm. Well, one example is Miss B. She's the young Anne Hathaway lookalike with a beehive.
Yeah.
Yeah, her talk animation is very distinct compared to the Papa Danger character we were mentioning. So for her, doing a mission like Contact Double Agent is super risky because suddenly, if you're
Yeah,
doing
she's
if you're doing a white Contact Double Agent, which involves talking and a code word being said out loud to the sniper, it's way easier for them to notice.
yeah, yeah, because she's kind of out there with her gestures. She
Mm.
waves her hands around, right? I'm thinking of the right person, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Those young people with their big gesticulations.
Hey, she's got to get her point across.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like what else have you noticed with the new character art? What's been interesting to you about it with what you've played so far?
Uh, I want to like give a big kudos to like the subtle details that aren't really there for the game's meta, but they're just for aesthetic. Like my friend pointed out that if you look at the old lady's bag, the dog pops out little things like that. I
Yes.
like that.
Like,
I like.
have you noticed what happens if the sniper aims their laser at the dog?
Does he head back in?
Yeah.
All right,
So
that was a good
so you
guess. I didn't know that
can't
though.
shoot the dog. The dog is off
Interesting.
limits.
Yeah, because I remember him saying that, and then me not really doing anything about it. Then earlier today, I just pointed at the bag to see if it really happens. Dog popped out, and it's all those little interesting additions that really make the atmosphere,
Hmm.
the party, seem more alive, which is really cool. I think.
Hmm. Yeah, and it is cool to see a game where small visual details can be gameplay, can be things that the player has to think about. As as you were saying, stuff with talking animations or how large your character is suddenly being important to how you think about your game.
Yeah, it suddenly becomes part of the gameplay, which is pretty cool. It's very abstract, Each round, um, each round is distinct. Every game is its own game. You
Hmm.
really have to improvise in a lot of situations, and I think that's really what makes it special. There's no in fighting games we have a thing called set play or vortex, which
Okay.
it's basically doing something following a setup. Um, and it guarantees certain situations. And in Spy Party, that's not really there, and I think that's what makes it special. It's like another analogy would be chess. A lot of professional chess players complain about the end game
Hmm.
being just a list of plays and counters to those plays, and this chess would be better if the pieces were just placed randomly on the board, stuff like that. And that's what Spy Party. I think that's what makes Spy Party special. Like it's you have to be cunning, you have to be very strategic, and you have to think on the fly.
Yeah, no, and that's certainly something people enjoy very much about the game. Chris, I think wrote a blog about this. He used to be aiming for the game to be like the board game Go. Have you heard of that?
I feel like I've heard the name, but I have no idea what it's about. And if
It's
you actually,
very good. You should check it out. It's a two-player symmetrical board game where you play stones, like chess, but it's adding stones to the board instead of removing pieces. But it's similar to chess. It's a concrete information game. Like there it is, all the information is on the board, and you just have to be able to process all of it. And he was aiming for Spy Party to be a high play skill game like that. But then he realized that because the game has randomness and improvisation and double bluffing, that it was more like poker, and that's sort of what the game was pushing him towards, and what the game wanted to be. And so now he's been embracing that. Um,
yeah, I actually that's a good way to put it because I think poker is one of the better analogies because poker is one of those games that a lot of people consider gambling, but the people who play poker say no, it's not because you have influence over the odds. You can make somebody call, raise, you can make somebody fold.
hmm.
But it still has that bit of variance. As far as Spy Party is, definitely a lot less variance.
Yeah,
Oftentimes you'll
yeah,
yeah,
you
go
can
on.
have different levels of randomness, and in Spy Party there's
Exactly.
not as much.
Yeah, and initially, like people will look at that as a negative, like I couldn't win the mission because my seduction target was wherever or wouldn't get in a conversation circle, the double agent, and I don't really I remember when I was analyzing the game when I first started playing, I looked at that as a negative, like not having any control over the NPCs being a negative.
Hmm.
As far as competition goes, but as time has gone on, I've actually grown to like that because it really puts the pressure on you as a spy to make things count when you have a chance, but you still don't want to get caught.
Yeah, well, like, and another thing, someone who's much better than me sort of explained that idea to me that like you don't want to be too focused on the local situation. There's also the global situation of the entire match. Um, and it's like sometimes a good player will lose to a less experienced player by some stroke of luck or an accident or something will just happen. But in the aggregate, the odds will be in their favor if they're more skilled. And like that was something that sort of struck home that idea to me of yes, sometimes you will be unlucky, but in the long run, if you're better, you will win more of the games.
Exactly. And that's why I always like that's why I always prefer when I play with my friend. I always try to play for like at least an hour, just me and him. Like, I think it's one of the issues with Spy Party in terms of like making it a competitive game. It would take a lot of time because you don't simply want to play somebody in 4 matches of Spy Party.
Yeah,
You want
yeah,
to you want to sit down with somebody. You want to play them for like you want to play. I mean, if we could, we'd play. We'd all play each other for like 2 hours.
yeah. No.
Because
And what's cool is the game gets more interesting the longer two people are playing because they have more information about how the other person's been behaving in the previous rounds.
exactly, and it's always changing and it's always fluctuating.
Hmm.
So the game really the strategy revolving around the game, there's no endpoint to it. Sometime it's always changing. Sometime down the road, who knows? Adding time 2 times in a match might be the new meta, and it's easier to get away with than it would have ever been ever.
I
Because
don't
right
know,
now,
but maybe.
no,
Like,
yeah, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's a theoretical. I don't imagine that adding time often will ever be a good
Hmm.
strategy.
Or m maybe
But
people will get good enough to return the guest list. Like, no one's doing that. Actually, someone did that to me, and then they took the guest list again just for the hell of it, and then they got shot.
uh, they were doing the troll. Yeah, right now returning the guest list, you really don't benefit from it.
I mean, you're
It's
hot
it's
stuff if you can do it. Like, it totally worked on me.
yeah, yeah. I think on a smaller map it's hard, but I think you get away with it on like Panop or Veranda. But I don't really know if you really yield the reward for that. You already got away with purloining it.
Hmm.
If you were able to return it, then there was probably never any suspicion on you in the first place.
Hmm. Yeah, I should probably explain for people who don't know, one of the missions in the game is to purloin the guest list. So there's a waiter who's got a sheet of paper on his tray of drinks. He's offering people drinks. Some people take drinks, some people refuse. Um, you can choose to take a drink and at the same time purloin the guest list, so the white paper will disappear. So it's a hard piece of information that the sniper's trying to remember is if the guest list disappears, who just took a drink. Um, and you can also, for the hell of it, if you want to, take a drink again and return the guest list, but that would be doubly risky, and so people don't tend to do it.
Yeah, I remember when I got back into it when I first started messing around with that mission. I remember first seeing the option return the guest list, and I was just like, it just hit me. I'm like,
So
why
obviously
would
you did it.
why would somebody return it? I had to ask, like, what's your return? Like, what do you get for returning it? And Magician just explained if you could return it in time and the sniper never notices it, then nobody will ever suspect that you purloined it. But
You'd have to be
I,
really
I
quick too, because you'd have to
yeah, you'd have to gulp
purloin, gulp
or
the drink, reorder another one, and that's going to look like really suspect if the sniper turns around and sees, wow, that person taking another drink. I know, like, here's an idea. Maybe the general does that because he likes to chug drinks. Maybe that's an idea.
oh, there we go. Character traits. The general, he's quite the drinker,
Hmm.
and that's
He
all
can
part of
hold
the
his own.
meta.
He's a big man.
That'd be pretty good, actually. Somebody returns it using the general.
Hmm. Cool. Is there any other details of the new character art you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, we kind of digressed.
Yeah,
New
what
art.
were we talking about?
Honestly, I really just can't. I really can't wait to see all the maps updated. It'll
Hmm.
be quite a bit of time before we see a lot of them, but just to see how every map is going to change, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Do you find with the new environment art on High Rise, like um d does it distract you somewhat? Because I remember going back to old High Rise, I was like, wow, these walls are a lot. There's a lot less information on these walls. Like, do you find it easy enough as the sniper to read the room in the new art?
In the new art, no, it's harder. Just like all the little extra details and all the pop and the
Hmm.
colors definitely make it harder.
There's
Because
a
when you go back
kitchen.
to the yeah, when you go back to the old art high rise, it almost feels like they took real estate out of the apartment. Like it seems like there's a lot more space,
Hmm.
it seems like you could see everything, you know. So I kind of feel like new art helps the spy a lot. You know, currently, that could change, but currently, new art helps the spy a lot more than it helps the sniper.
Hmm. It does at least give the sniper something nice to look at.
It does do that, and it definitely gives new viewers something nice to look at
Mm.
in case they, you know. I've often heard whenever I have somebody like in my family who I show the game to or a friend, they always like, "Is this The Sims?" They say The Sims. I don't know why The Sims,
Well,
you
there
know. And
aren't
then I'm
many
trying
other
to,
games with rooms of people in them.
yeah, exactly, walking around doing
Mm.
odd stuff.
Doing things that do not involve shooting or stabbing other people.
Oh man. But yeah, regarding new art, I really just can't wait to see all the old maps updated.
Mm.
I really want to know what it does to certain maps, you know, because I can imagine Veranda becoming a lot harder on new art. Just so much more, you know, sensory information for the sniper, like from, you know, from the new models to just stuff on the wall,
Mm.
paintings, you know, doorknobs being added, just random stuff.
Mm. Yeah, it's certainly something they'll and I think they've done a very good job of it so far, being careful about how much information is in the scene. Because I feel like high rise there's more information to look at, but it's also um, uh, it is still like held back. They don't have ridiculous detail all over the place. Like there's not very detailed textures. A lot of the stuff that's sort of outside the room that's not of attention is like very simple. So I feel like they'll do a good job of it, of making sure that the sniper isn't
Yeah.
distracted by something 3 kilometers away.
Yeah, that's important. Like you don't want to use up too much of that negative space. You want some of that negative space to be there. This way the sniper doesn't feel like looking for the spy is a chore, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Hmm.
I definitely the new art, I definitely would say some of it's been distracting, but not in a bad way, you know? In a way.
Like novelty, it's just distracting because it's new.
Yeah. For lack of a better word, novelty is definitely a good way to put it. Mostly because it's new. I'm sure as I go on, everything in the background will just become a blur.
Hmm.
And you know, once I learn about the way the characters act and missions and whatnot, that I'll be able to block all that stuff out.
Hmm. Yeah, no, humans are very good at doing that.
But yeah, it's you made that point. Like it's important that you moderate how much you actually put into the aesthetic,
Hmm.
because I think distracting the sniper too much is wouldn't be a good idea.
Hmm. Yeah, and there's like smart color selection at the moment as well. Like the outside of the room is all like very cool desaturated colors, and there's very little detail in it, so the sniper's not distracted by what's not in the room. And a lot of the geometry in the room it is very simple. Just yeah, so I feel like they'll do a good job. And by they I mean John. There's one person doing all this art,
Yeah, I was
so
just about to say that. They, you know, it's
the amorphous
impressive
they.
actually.
Mm. Yeah, he's
It's weird.
just yeah go.
No, it's weird. I was thinking about today, you know, and like the aesthetic and whatnot and the style, and I just really can't picture anything else that would suit the game, you know,
Yeah,
and the
it's perfect.
objectives.
They, they they spent a lot of time finding the right style, and they found it. So hey, good job, Chris and John.
Definitely good job.
Hey, we we should just turn this into a podcast where we talk about how good John and Chris are. It's like, man, those
we
guys, man.
we've digressed enough, you know. We could do anything now. We could discuss anything.
Hmm. I mean, we're at about 30, so do you wanna call it about here? I feel like we said some things that people might find interesting, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully they find it interesting. Uh, I would hope we didn't do this for no reason.
Well,
But at the same
who
time, I
says
don't
you need
mind.
a reason?
Yeah, I enjoy discussing the game. You know, you forget that it's a podcast. I don't really, in real life, you don't really have too many people that you could, you know, discuss Spy Party with.
Hmm.
So,
Well, hey, who knows?
any,
Maybe in 10 years this will be very, very popular.
I, I hope so. We could all hope that.
Hmm. Like it's certainly more accessible to different people.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole 30-minute
Yeah,
topic,
that's a
onto itself, like how accessible it is. Because I
Hmm.
think a lot of people watching from the outside or, newcomers think one thing and, it's something else entirely.
Hmm. But like at the same time, like I'll try and make this short because we're about to stop. But I think because when you look at it, it's a room of people. It's something that is engaging to people who don't play video games. And I also think that the skills you need to play the game are something that most people have because they're not actual hand-eye coordination skills of holding a controller. It's perceiving information in a room and deducing and using empathy.
Yeah, it's not hard to pick up. There's not a lot of dexterity
Hmm.
required to play Spy Party. It's really a lot of subtlety and more so, knowledge. But I actually think in regards to accessibility, I think the new art's gonna help a lot when demoing the game.
Yeah, very much so.
Just
Just
there's a lot of pop to it. More people will probably be interested in seeing what the game is actually about.
Yeah, just drawing eyes. Okay. Well, I guess we will call it there. So thank you very much, Moons, for taking part in this still very rough experiment for the community.
No problem. I love subjecting myself to experiments.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next week.